see Hinda has joined and Steve is here as well. Good morning. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right. So good morning to everybody. We will continue now with Siman Reish Mem Gimel. We were in the middle of the comments of the Mishnah Berurah, and we left off. The great thing about having these video records is you can always check where you were last. You go back to the previous recording. It took me a second when I was preparing. I was like, just remember where I left off. So I think we were right up to Daled in the Mishnah Berurah's comments, and so let me just get my spotlight here. So that is right over here, the Stam Merchatz. So just to remind everybody what was being taught in this context, what's going on. So the Shulchan Aruch had said that a person is not allowed to rent out his bathhouse that he owns as a business to a non-Jew, and this business will now be functioning on Shabbos. The reason is because people will associate the name of the business with the Jew who owns the business, and they're going to believe and understand that the non-Jew is just doing the malacha, the forbidden labors on Shabbos, on behalf of the Jewish owner, because people will not assume that there is a rental here, which means that the non-Jew is running the business, and the Jew gains no profits from business being open on Shabbos. It's all up to the non-Jew. If he keeps it open, if it's closed, doesn't make a difference to what the Jew in this situation would be making in terms of profits. But the reason it's not okay is because the Stam Merchatz Lav La'ari Susa Avid, that the normal business arrangement with regards to a bathhouse was not one of a sharecropper. It's not the type of situation where the person, non-Jew, would be working and takes a chelek, a portion of what the profits are, like you would have in a field. In a field, okay, so you produce 100 bushels of, whatever it is, wheat, let's say, and so part of the payment is that the sharecropper takes a third, takes a fourth, whatever it is, of whatever is produced. There, it's again a situation, and we'll talk about this more in a field where there's plenty of incentive for the non-Jew on his own to do it. The more he does, the more he or she does, the more he or she makes. And if the non-Jew decides to make and produce zero, so then the answer is that the Jew, also gets zero. Plus, there's another factor that is helpful halachically in that situation in the field, and that is that crops don't. Let's put it this way: it doesn't make much of a difference if I harvest something on Shabbos or harvest it on Sunday. The crops will still be there. The fruit will still be there. Whatever it is that this person is working in the field doing, it's still there. But a business opportunity like a bathhouse, if I close my business on Saturday, well, I can never get that business back. Oh, they'll come on Sunday. Okay, but I could have had business of people coming on Saturday and Sunday. And people maybe want to take a bath every single day. So it's not something where the actual profit itself is there on Sunday to be picked. The money will come in on Saturday too, and I could make additional money on Saturday that I wouldn't have made if I just was open on Sunday. Okay.
Can the owner post a sign saying 1/7 of the profits in this business go to, and name the person who's working there?
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, Hinda. So a little bit later on, he is there. This question will be taken up about publicizing what is the situation. Um, yes, so we'll talk about that in Sif Bays. He talked about the idea of nispar sem hadavar, publicizing what is the arrangement, and if there's a long-standing business partnership between the Jew or a business arrangement between this Jew and the non-Jew, and basically he has rented out this business year after year. He owns it, but he, doesn't take any of the profits because he just gets a yearly payment from the non-Jew. So that may be a very different situation, and we will talk about that. So that will play into this. Yes. Okay. All right. So now let's read Daled in the Mishnah Berurah. The Stam Merchatz. The average Merchatz is not part of a sharecropper arrangement. So the Mishnah Berurah writes, Perush. The explanation of this comment, because of lahalan desade muter lahaskiro mitam ze shehitlu ba'arisus. We're going to say a little bit later on, and hopefully today we'll get to this, that in a field it's permissible to rent out your field because of this reason, because people will assume, they will say, what? Oh, they'll pass by as they're walking the shul on Shabbos, and they'll say, oh, he's a sharecropper. That's why he's working in the field, which we know is owned by a Jew. So it's because they can hang their hat on it's a sharecropper arrangement. Va'al zeh ka'amar, and on this it said the b'merchatz leka haytama lahatir. By a bathhouse, you don't have that assumption in the background, because again, it's not like the first arrangement. There's not like the arrangement in the field is also a sharecropper. Where maybe it is a situation where it's a rental, but they can at least assume that. But the assumption that will be made is that it's a sharecropper situation, and that's why it's fine. There's no problem of people being suspicious that there is something problematic about what's going on. De'ein derech litno ba'arisus v'lo yitlu gamkein she'iskiru kfi ha'emes lo shchiach. But in a bathhouse situation, it's not normal to have a sharecropper arrangement. It's hard to even imagine what a sharecropper arrangement would sort of even look like here. I mean, you could say, okay, well, it depends on if you make $100 that day, so you'll take a third of the profits. That's what it will be. But that's not a normal situation. People who own retail businesses don't necessarily hire their workers and say, your salary will be a percentage of the profits. Is it a possible arrangement? Sure. But apparently that was not a normal situation when it came to a bathhouse. And it was also not something that was normally rented out. You wouldn't just say, here, you pay me X for the business, for the month, and you run the business. I mean, this is my business, and suddenly I'm going to have somebody else completely take it over for a month. What about all my customers and my clients who I have a personal relationship with? Suddenly that's going to be gone for a month. And how does that even work? So that's not a normal arrangement. According to the truth, that's not normal. It's not the common way to engage in such a business. That's why that heter doesn't exist in this context. He continues here, B'shlichuso shel Yisrael, that the assumption here will be that the non-Jew is doing this as the messenger of the Jew. That's why he's working on Shabbos. V'zehu isur gomur, and that is actually not just the problem of maris ayin, of people making assumptions that there's something going on here that's fishy and suspicious, but that's actually a problem. If the non-Jew is working as a shaliach of the Jew, that's a problem. Kamo she'omru b'kama mekomos, as it says in many different places in the Gemara, and we'll talk about it in many different places in Shulchan Aruch. The amira le'enu Yehudi shvus. It's a rabbinic violation. Shvus means it's something that I'm supposed to refrain from. The asmachuhu akra, and the Gemara uses, actually, sorry, it's not the Gemara, it's the Mechilta, it's the Medrash Halacha that makes a connection to a pasuk. Most assume that it's an asmachta, it's a hint. The pasuk is simply a hint. It's not a full-fledged derivation from the Torah itself that this is prohibited, and that's why the overwhelming understanding is that it's a rabbinic prohibition to ask a non-Jew to do something that would be biblically prohibited. The pasuk says, "The chol malacha lo ye'aseh bahem." It says, "Lo ye'aseh bahem." All work, all labor shall not be done bahem, by them. The lo ktiv lo ta'aseh. It doesn't say lo ta'aseh. Work shall not be done. It says ye'aseh. It says don't. And it doesn't say don't do work. It says work shall not be done. And if it says work shall not be done, what's the drasha? L'ramez da'afilu al yedei acherim, to hint to the idea that even through others, non-Jews who are not commanded in keeping Shabbos, lo ye'aseh, it shall not be done through others. V'afilu kishe'oseh ba'asmo. Malacha shel Yisrael bishvilo. Now, what I'm going to say may be a little bit surprising to people, though it's not a controversial line in terms of halacha. Even if a non-Jew were to do something on their own on behalf of the Jew, gam kein sarech limchos biyado. The Jew really should tell them, "Nah, don't do that for me." So they see that you're in a room where there's no light. Again, not in a context, let's say, as I mentioned already before, shul is not a great example, which I think may sometimes confuse things more, because shul is a public setting, and there may be room for leniency as a matter of practical halacha when it comes to the needs of the community on Shabbos. But when it comes to the needs of the individual on Shabbos, there is no such heter. There are some exceptions when you have two derabbanans cobbled together, or you have a situation of great need, which needs definition. But let's just say that a non-Jew sees that you need some light because it's dark in your area, in the room, and so they walk in and say, "Oh, it looks like you need." I didn't hint anything. They just walk in, they start saying, "Oh, I see you need the light on here. Let me flip the lights on for you." And now you're going to be able to benefit. You'll be able to read, etc., etc. And they're not going to benefit. They didn't turn the light on because they walked in the room because they need the light. They just simply notice that I do. They're going to walk right back out. So they're not benefiting from it. It's actually problematic to just allow that to go forward. And we'll have much more to say on that. But it's not always straightforward that I should be able to. If the non-Jew did it, well, then if they do it, if the malacha is done on my behalf, even if I don't request it, it may still be problematic. I will say one more thing here, and you can see this in the Sharat Tziyun down below in Zion over here. He says that the reason that there may be more stringency when it comes to this, that to Amir al-Nochri, to saying to a non-Jew, do X. Why, even though it's not biblically prohibited, why are we so worried about people thinking that in this situation, the whole prohibition is people think that I'm telling the non-Jew to work for me on Shabbat. It's not actually what's happening here. I have a permissible arrangement by the letter of the law, but people, because of Maris Ayin, are going to assume the wrong thing. Why? Because there's a doubt as to how to interpret what the Mechilta says, that medrash that says that it doesn't say ta'aseh, it says ye'aseh. It doesn't say don't do. It says these things shall not be done on Shabbos. And maybe ulai hu drasha gemura. Some want to claim, a minority want to claim that maybe telling a non-Jew to do something on Shabbos is included in what the Torah is saying. That I'm not allowed to tell the non-Jew on a biblical level to do things that are prohibited for me to do. At the end of the day, the poskim seem to come and fall out on the side of it's rabbinic, but because there are some few who have this fear in terms of their interpretation of this midrash that it may be biblical, they suggest that this is one of the reasons why there is more stringency in the Talmud when it comes to maris ayin of this prohibition. Okay, that's a theory. I'm not saying that that's what it is, but that's what some put forward as to why there is more stringency by this situation, people seeing and perhaps gleaning the incorrect information and thinking there's something wrong, versus other mitzvot in the Torah, or mitzvot d'Rabbanan, for example. Okay. Now, in the Sadeh, though, Vav, we said it's permissible. In the field, this type of arrangement is permissible because Shekain Derech L'Kabel Sadeh Ba'arisus. It is normal to have a sharecrop arrangement. And even if people know that this field is owned by a Jew, they'll walk by and they'll say, it's just an arisus, it's just a sharecropper arrangement, and he's working for himself here. He's doing extra work. He wants to get more money. Now, let's read the comment here in Vav. Sadeh muter lehaskira le'eno Yehudi bedavar kotzuv. That's important here too. It's permissible to have a rental arrangement with a davar kotzuv, meaning there's a fixed number. You're paying me to use the field for 1 month, fixed price. You're giving me $100. If you work the field 30 days, all 30 days, I get $100. If you work the field 15 days, I get $100. If you work the field 1 day, I get $100. Doesn't matter. It's a davar kotzuv. It's a fixed amount. The nikres nami al shemo. Even though yes, it's Cohen's field, or kamo merchatz, like in the situation we had by the bathhouse. The chol mechubar stama shem balabimo, as we assume that all things that are attached to the ground, it's not like metaltalin. You could have a book, a water bottle. Sorry, it's right in front of me. You have a tissue box. You have also a computer. So that looks like Cohen's computer. That looks like Klinger's Ramaz issued computer. But there are other people who have HP computers, and so if they see an HP computer, so perhaps, and it even looks like it, so maybe he sold it. It's metaltalin change hands, but people don't just every single day sell their land or give it away to somebody. So even though that's true that people will assume it's Cohen's field, ulahaskir nami lo shriach, and rent out the field is not actually the normal way. You don't rent out, here, take my field, $100, you do whatever you want. It's not the normal way, though it could be possible. Lo shriach kol kach mikol makom muter. It's an okay arrangement. The lo yach, if you do rent it out, the lo yach shaduhu b'schir yom. People will not assume that you hired him as a one-day worker, which would also be problematic. That's problematic because if I pay him for 1 day of work on Shabbos, say here, work my field, I'll give you $10. You work the whole day, and you get $10. That's a problem. Or better yet, I say to the non-Jew, you pay me $10 and you can have all the profits from today. Meaning whatever you do, you get zero profits, you get $100, you pay me $10, it's fixed. Still a problem because then I have an arrangement where I've made $10 on Shabbos because I sold the business just on Shabbos. And that's a problem because of doing business related only to Shabbos. I'm not allowed to make profits from just Shabbos. There has to be, the Havlah has to be literally swallowed up in a greater whole. So if I rent it out for a week, Shabbos is included in the week, but I rented it out for a period of time which was not just simply Shabbos, then it's permissible. But if it's just Shabbos, that's a problem. So people will not assume it's a schir yom arrangement, because the normal arrangement when you hire somebody to work your field, in those days at least, was a sharecropper arrangement. You take a percentage of whatever is harvested. Fine. People will assume it's arisus going on here. Arisus shari, and sharecrop arrangements are permissible because the person is working for their own sake. As we'll talk about in the Roma in a second. And one important factor on top of that is it's not just that he's working for himself, but in a field, there is no change in the amount of benefit if I pick it on Saturday or on Sunday. I, as the owner, don't care also. You want to do it Sunday, you want to do it Saturday. At the end of the day, my field can produce X amount. It can't produce more. So just because you didn't pick it on Saturday doesn't mean now that I could have had things that will grow on Sunday, and now I'm missing on extra profits. That may be a problem if he works it on Saturday. Now I get extra profits that I would not have been able to make. But we'll talk about that more in just a little bit. Zion, okay, just to show you what's going on here. But Tanur, other cases, Tanur, person who owns an oven, a communal oven, things that we don't know of today so much. A communal oven has the halacha of a merchatz, of a bathhouse. Again, people don't usually have a sharecrop arrangement. I own the business. You'll work for me. You'll run the business, and for a month, and you'll take 30% of the profits of all the people who come through the tanur of the communal oven. It's just not a normal arrangement to make it dependent upon how many people come through. It just even I hear that it's not, that wouldn't be a smart arrangement from the owner's perspective. By a field, so the more I incentivize you to harvest my field and to pick things, so the better, or you'll work it also, you'll make sure that it's you fertilize it properly, etc., etc. So you'll make more. Here, this doesn't add up to make that kind of arrangement. V'rechaim, a mill. I'm just turning the page here. Dinam kasada has the law of like a field. Apparently, that was a normal arrangement to have like an arisus type of situation. I'm not sure why that was normal, but that's the situation in a mill. Let's look now at the Mishnah Berurah's comments in Zion. V'tanur lahaskiro tanuru le'efosbo. People are let's say you rent out the business, so that people can use it to bake or something like that. I make an arrangement. A non-Jew has a bake-a-thon, right? Or he's a caterer or something like that. So he takes I rent out my tanur that the people are going to use it to bake. So dino kemerchatz, it's got the law of a merchatz, even though that's a permissible arrangement. Let's say I give the caterer a week. I rent it out for a week. It's your business. You pay me $100. You can use the oven as you please. Still a problem, because people will assume that tanur nami ein derech lahaskira v'litno b'arisus, that they'll see the non-Jew working that business. They'll walk by on Shabbos as they're going to shul, and they'll say, "Oh, look at Cohen. Cohen keeps his oven open on Shabbos." And kamo merchatz, like the merchatz v'yachshadu d'schir yom hu etzlo, and they'll say, "Look at this guy. He's paying this guy to keep the business running on Shabbos. What a guy. This is terrible." And
also an issue of trays being put in the oven. You don't have much heat there on Shabbos.
Right. Who knows what they're baking there? but let's assume that they would kosher it afterwards. But yeah. I mean, there could be other problems that emerge from this as well. You're absolutely right.
Rabbi, the tanur issue.
Yes.
There was a custom, I know when I was a little kid, that there was a oven bakery that they put the cholent in there, and on Shabbos they all to get home. I mean, they had their mates bringing home, whatever, but it was being used on Shabbos for that purpose. So how would you reconcile that?
So what was happening? It was being baked on Shabbos?
No, they put in just like you have your crock pot today. Yeah, they put everything in on Friday into the oven. The oven,
right?
Into the baker's oven, and on Shabbos for lunch, they was brought into the houses for people to eat it.
So that's actually not, and we will get to this when we actually. I mean, we'll still be a few months off, but down the road. But we will get to this with the idea of putting food in some sort of oven, some sort of heating mechanism before Shabbos in order to pull it out on Shabbos. That is permissible under certain circumstances. It's permissible.
I'm sure they paid for it though. I mean, somebody, it wasn't a freebie that people were getting.
You saying they paid for the usage of the oven?
I'm sure. I mean, so they were using fuel and everything else. I mean, somebody had to bear the cost, right?
So, Tommy, I had always assumed in that situation that the oven just sort of retained its heat because it was used the other 6 days of the week, and that it wasn't being stoked. There wasn't more wood wasn't being added. It just stayed hot, and that's why they were able to do it.
But I'm
Right.
sure somebody must have paid for that service.
Right. That's what Tommy's asking. What about paying, the not, somebody like, that who owns the business, and that's a non-Jew can own the business or something like that, or they're working, they're. So again, if they're being paid in some arrangement that is behavla, and minimally in this situation, by the way, you're probably using their oven prior to Shabbos as well, so you are making payment, a total payment for usage that happened on Shabbos and not on Shabbos. So off the bat, I think that's probably going to be fine. It's more, again, as I said, it's very the problem of schar Shabbos, which is a rabbinic issue, is only when the payment is only related to Shabbos. That means if you're paying a worker of yours and you pay them just for Shabbos in their paycheck, even though they worked on Shabbos, that is problematic. Sorry, if the paycheck is inclusive of Shabbos in addition to everything, that's okay, as long as it's not individualized. And we'll have more to say on that topic too. There's much written about this. About Schar Shabbos. We will get there. There are the following simonim are going to all have to do with Amir L'Nochri, and then we're going to come back to it months down the line. Once again, the halacha revisits this with a few simonim about Amir L'Nochri on Shabbos. A lot of these situations are ones where you would have these arrangements before Shabbos that carry over into Shabbos. But what about Amir L'Nochri straight up on Shabbos? Okay. Chet rechaim, the mill, mishum dedarko litno be'arisus. Why is that permissible? Because it's normal, apparently, in those days to have a sharecrop arrangement. Kamosa, they like the field. Ulefichach la'askiro nami muter uchadlea. That's why to rent it out would be permissible, because no one was going to assume the worst about you, and it's permissible by the letter of the law. V'ayin Baran, take a look at Rabbeinu Nisim, who is a Rishon. The mashma, or it seems we can apply and learn from what he says, the im ein derech anshe oso, and this is the most important thing we could learn from everything we've learned today. The im ein derech anshe oso hamakom litein rechaim ba'arisus. If what is normal for the people in a particular location is to have arrangements with the mill in a sharecropper fashion, so is not to have that kind of arrangement. Dino kamo merchatz, then the halacha is like a bathhouse, le'isser, which is prohibited. De be'emes talui b'chol elu hadvarim lefi minhag hamedina. This whole situation depends on what's normal where you live, right? So these arrangements about ovens and these communal ovens, I don't know if they still even exist. Like it's not a thing, but everything depends on what's normal in a particular location. Bein lahakel, bein lahachmer. Whether we're stringent or we're lenient on the matter, it just depends on minhag of the place. Uchadil kameh, as we'll talk about in Sif Beis, we'll talk about this even more. Okay, let's go down here. The Ramah writes over here, V'afal pisha lo lakcha ha'eno Yehudi rak l'shlisho l'revia. Even though maybe the arrangement with a non-Jew to a sharecrop arrangement, they're going to take a third or a quarter of the profits, of the output. Okay, and it's true that the Jew will benefit from what was done on Shabbos by the non-Jew. It's permissible, shari, the Eino Yehudi adaite de nafshe oved, because the non-Jew is working for his own sake. He's not working to make me profits. He wants to collect his profits. He wants to get the output so that he can go home and feed his family the wheat that he earned. And that ends Sif Aleph, and there are two more comments. One giant comment, one smaller comment. We'll do the smaller comment, and we'll complete the larger comment at the beginning of next week's shir, which tells us also a lot about Amir L'Nochri. Some basic principles are mentioned in these comments in Yud. But let's just read Tet for a second. In Tes, it says, the Mishnah Berurah says, Asada v'rechaim. Let's zoom in here, make it a little bigger for everybody. Asada v'rechaim kai. This is going back on the field and the mill, which were permissible. The hamachaber ma'iri b'schirus. There, the arrangement was schirus, which means all the profits go to the non-Jew. I got $100 for the arrangement for the month, and now all profits go to the non-Jew. Every penny that is made, every bushel of wheat that is harvested goes to the non-Jew. V'hu mosif, and so what the Ramah is adding here, the af arisus mutter, meaning where I will make money on Shabbos as a Jew. In the schirus arrangement, I make no money on Shabbos. I made money from the monthly payment that they made. But now, even on Shabbos, I will make profits. Because when they pick 10 bushels of wheat, I get 7 of those. And they only get 3. Even Arisus is mutter on Shabbos. Now, it's true that Mechaber would say that as well, but the Mechaber kept talking about Arisus. V'hu mosif z'af Arisus Mechaber gam kein svir lekein mitam zeh hitir b'schirus. The Mechaber would agree that that's why schirus is also permissible. Kein nirali ela shehu bier behedja. The Mechaber didn't say it, but the Ramah wants to say it explicitly that even Arisus is permissible on Shabbos because that's the whole reason for the heter for schirus. It's because people will assume Arisus. Arisus is mutter, even though a Jew makes profits on it. And we will talk about that more. The idea that the Jew will make profit from what happens on Shabbos. But how do we characterize a daita de nafshei abed? What does it mean? What does it literally mean when we say that the non-Jew is doing this on their own, on their own accord? They're doing this for themselves. How do we strictly define what it means for them to do it on their own accord? Because even technically a person who's working the field on Shabbos, working at the bathhouse on Shabbos, they say, look, the only reason I'm here today is because I'm getting a salary, right? Not because he sold me the business. If I'm not getting a salary, I wouldn't come into work. I want to make my money. So why is that a prohibited situation? Or just a regular worker on Shabbos, because they also have incentive to come to work to get money. Why is that a prohibited arrangement versus a situation where they are taking all the profits and they paid me for the business? Why is that different? We'll talk about that next time in the comments.